Well, welcome everyone. Today we're looking at break-even analysis, or commonly known as cost volume profit analysis, and some nice practical problems to solve. Not working with too much data today, but building on the work we've been doing in terms of breaking costs into fixed costs, variable costs. So we'll build on that. This topic is applicable for retail, imagine, or a doctor's surgery, a plumber, a builder, and essentially I'll break it down for you that the doctor's surgery might be looking for, look, where's my break-even point? How many patients do I need to see per day to cover my fixed costs? And so think of a surgery, think of the receptionist salary, the lighting, the rent of the surgery, that sort of thing. And the same with a guy that's taking people out whale watching. We do a mix, historically look at the mix of tickets between pensioner and family and child to adult versus child tickets. So do a sales mix there, work out, is it worthwhile taking the boat out? There may be times when you still might go out, even though you haven't covered your fixed costs for the sake of goodwill. But more of that, practical questions we'll get into when we're in class. Let's launch through a few slides and discover some things today. So cost, volume, profit. Essentially, we'll be doing a whole lot of calculations to work out, what if scenarios. And the main data we're working with will be selling price, variable costs, fixed costs. So we'll be determining the break-even point. We'll work out how tax affects the cost, volume, profit analysis, how we might use it in decision-making. So we'll get into, and particularly Excel lends itself well, and particularly the goal-seek function in Excel works well as well. It's just one method of solving the questions. But it does help us plan ahead for the future. And we're going to also consider the fact that there might be more than one cost driver. And we'll be able to look at a range of scenarios, gather the data, look at a range of scenarios and work out where we might head. So a whole lot of sensitivity analysis going on. So let's lay some foundations. This thing called the contribution margin is essentially my revenues, selling price, if you like, minus, or in fact, here they are doing the total contribution margin, total revenue minus total variable costs. Here, a lot of the time we'll be using a per unit figure. So we'll get the selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit, and that will give me the contribution margin per unit. Of course, we've got a fixed contribution margin per unit, $5 per unit, say, and of course we need to multiply that by our quantities. There'll be times when we're trying to work out what quantity should we sell to earn a certain target profit. We could also solve problems. So this will give us an answer in units possibly, but we can solve dollars by finding the break-even sales in dollars rather than units. And so to do that, we can get away with using the contribution margin ratio, which is just your contribution margin per unit divided by your selling price per unit. So there's a few ways of solving the questions. We'll look at the equation method. We'll look, and the contribution margin method's just a rearrangement of the equation method, the graph method. But we'll also, fourth method we'll look at today is using goal-seek in Excel. And also there is a break-even function on your financial calculator. We'll look at solving it using that as well. So the basic formulas, total revenue minus variable cost minus fixed cost gives me my operating profit. So essentially I can key in the data and work out a whole range of scenarios there. And be aware that total revenue is made up of your selling price times your quantity or volume. And also variable cost made up of your variable cost per unit multiplied by your volume or quantity. We've just rearranged the formula then and or put the data in, selling price times quantity minus variable cost per unit times quantity minus the fixed cost will equal my profit. So we'll use a bit of algebra perhaps to solve some questions. And rearranging the formula, then what we can do is say for every unit we sell, imagine the selling price was $20 and the variable cost was 10. Every unit we sell, $10 is contributing towards covering my fixed costs and profit. So I can get the $10 times whatever the quantity of the units we're selling will give me my total contribution margin minus my fixed costs will give me my profit at the end. Let's have a look at how it might look graphically. I think we saw this last week as well, but have another look today. In this scenario here, fixed costs are remaining fixed, $2,000. They're flatlining here, regardless of whether we produce 0, 10, 20, or sell 20, 25, etc. And then we've got the revenue curve here, a steeper curve than the total cost curve, fortunately, otherwise we'd never break even. And to graph this, we will just gather the number of units multiplied by the selling price. So it looks like the selling price is $200, the slope of the revenue line. So we only need 2 points to draw a line. So we know if we sell nothing, we make nothing. So it starts here at the 0 at the axis here. And then we'll go 10 times $200 will be 2,000. So that'll take us up to that point there. And we could then draw our revenue line going on from there. And then let's layer the variable cost on top of the fixed cost, and we'll have the total cost curve. Total cost being made up of variable costs and fixed costs. So again, if the variable costs were $120 at 10, we've got $1,200. So total cost will be fixed cost of $2,000 plus $1,200 variable cost, $3,200. And once we've got the second line, we can draw the total cost curve. So now we can see that costs are above revenue all the way through to here. And at the point where they cross, we've broken even. We've covered our total costs, and everything beyond that, as we sell more, we're into the profit region. We could read off the profit at a particular scenario. We could say, hey, if we sell 40, there is my revenue, and there should be my total costs. So yeah, we'll draw some graphs. We'll see some other examples of these graphs in Excel, very easy to draw. There are a few assumptions in cost, volume, profit, and that is that we really can separate our costs between fixed and variable costs, and that they are a straight line, you know, that they are constant, if you like. Fixed costs and variable costs and selling price are constant. And of course, we know that we'll be, you know, we're looking in the short term, so it's a reasonable assumption to make in a 12-month period. If we're looking 12 months ahead, doing our planning for the following year, say, then they will be held reasonably constant. Won't be perfectly constant, but it's good enough for us to at least do some budgeting and what-if analysis and planning and preparation. And we'll also be able to look at if we did have more than one product, we need to know what the relative sales mix is of those products for us to be able to come up with an accurate scenario or profit budget figure, if you like. Time value of money is ignored, which is not a big issue because we're really, as I said, only looking about 12 months ahead, maybe 2 years ahead. We'll keep adjusting our budgets and cost, volume, profit analysis. So what we can do, we could rearrange this equation that you saw a few slides back, and we would find that if we divide the fixed cost by the contribution margin per unit, we'll have the break-even point. That makes sense because, a selling price, say, is $20, variable cost is $10. $10 is going towards covering my fixed costs. So as long as I divide my fixed costs by the contribution that each item we sell is making towards those costs, once I've covered the fixed costs, I've broken even. Haven't made a profit, but I have broken even at that point. Similarly, we could get the fixed cost and divide by the contribution margin ratio, and we'd have the break-even point, not necessarily, we wouldn't be in units, but it would be in dollars, break-even in revenue dollars. We could also then plug in a profit, a lump sum profit, if we wanted to find a particular lump sum profit. So we could go, well, we not only want to cover our fixed costs, we also want to make this profit. So now let's divide that by the contribution margin per unit, and we'll have the quantity required to cover the fixed costs and generate that profit. Some questions might quote a figure, you're trying to generate a profit before tax, and some questions might quote, look, we're aiming for a profit after tax, in which case we need to convert the profit after tax to a profit before tax before we can plug it into our equations and solve for the target profit or quantities. So let's have a look at a quick example. If your profit before tax was $1,000, tax rate 30%, you'll pay tax of $300. Therefore, profit after tax will be $700. So if a question gives you, we're going to apply this formula here and prove that it works. If a question said, oh, look, we would like an after-tax profit of $700, to convert that, we'll go 700 divided by 1 minus the tax rate. Tax rate's 30%. So $700 divided by 0.7 will give us $1,000. We can be confident that that formula's working and we're good to go. So don't plug a profit after tax in, do a quick conversion and plug a profit before tax into your equations. So all sorts of things, cost volume profit can help us adjust the selling price, help us adjust what if variable costs go up? What if we can't sell that much? So we can do a range of scenarios. So all of these things could change volume. So we would then be able to think ahead. What are our options? What could we do? So we'll see a few of those coming up in a moment. Before we do that, though, the margin of safety, just purely how far above the break-even point are you? So the margin of safety ratio is essentially the margin of safety divided by budgeted sales. So imagine we're budgeting sales to be $200,000 and we've worked out the break-even sales point is $100,000. So our margin of safety, we are $100,000 above the break-even point if we think we can generate those sorts of sales. Budgeted revenue minus break-even revenues. And all we do then is find that or obtain that margin of safety in dollars and put it over our budgeted sales, if you like. So we've got a margin of safety ratio of 50%, which purely means that sales could drop by 50% and we would still break even. So let's have a look at a range of facilities, a fairly simple spreadsheet to draw up. We've got a few variables. We've got a selling price of $200. We've generated a range of potential profits we're trying to make. What if we're trying to generate $1,200? What about $1,600? What about $2,000? And not only that, we've got 3 levels of potential fixed costs. What if fixed costs are $2,000? We're going to do 3 lots of calculations for that. What if they're $2,400 or what if they're $2,800? And we're also going to do 3 levels potential options for variable costs. What if they're $100? What if they're $120? What if they're $150? And so we can, obviously our break-even point is changing for each of these alternate possibilities. We'll just work one out now. We'll solve the sample for assuming the selling price, yes, is $200. And yes, we would like to make a $1,200 profit. And fixed costs are $2,000. And what if variable costs are $100? Let's plug these variables into the equation you just saw a couple of moments ago and see if we can get the break-even point, sorry, the quantity required to generate that profit of $1,200. If we wanted the break-even point, of course, we're just going to divide the fixed cost by the contribution margin. So let's do that. Let's do the break-even point. If the selling price is 200, the variable cost is 100. For every unit we sell, $100 is contributing towards this covering the fixed cost. What is $2,000 worth of fixed cost divided by that $100? Knock 2 zeros off. You've found the break-even point of 20. Well, what about if we wanted to also generate a profit of $1,200? So let's have a look down here. We'll pick up the fixed cost plus the target profit. Not only want to cover the 2,000, we also want to generate $1,200. Divide by selling price minus the variable cost, $100, and we've got a figure there of 32 units. And we do the same sort of, once you've done the formula, picked up, you could just drag that down and it will complete all these different scenarios for you. This is a different graph, quite a handy little different way of working out your profit figures. So we just might walk through it. It's worth doing. We've got 3 different options. We're going into a convention and they're saying, look, we'll offer you a flat fee of $2,000. Alternatively, depending on, you're trying to work out at what sales level, which is the best deal for you at a range of potential, sales that you might generate. And option 2 is a flat fee of $800, but they'll take 15% of your convention revenues. And finally, option 3, you could choose 25% of your revenue. So 3 different options to work out. If the selling price was $200 and the variable cost was $120, just remember, we only need 2 points to draw a line. So this point, we're drawing the profit figure, not the revenue line, in which case, when you're running at 0, under option 1, if you've got a $2,000 fixed fee, you'll have your profit will be minus 2,000 with 0 levels of sales. We only need 2 points to draw a line. So, for example, if you said, when have I broken even? When does my profit equal 0? So the answer there for option 1 is obtain your fixed fee of $2,000, divide by $200 selling price minus the variable cost of 120 gives you 25 units. Once you've got that, you're ready to draw the operating profit line for option 1. Then let's just draw a couple more. Break-even option for option 2. Option 2, we need to cover the $800. How many units is that? We'll divide by $200 minus the variable cost, and we'll include now the 15% of revenues as an additional commission, if you like, an additional variable cost. So 15% times 200, that's $30. So for every unit we sell, $30 is going, that we sell, every unit we sell, $30 is covering the convention, this percentage here. So we'll have $200 minus 120 minus 30, so $50 per unit is, and then we're going to say, well, how many units to cover that fixed fee now of $800? 800 divided by 50 is 16. So again, if we sell nothing, we're starting off with the fixed fee of $800. We go up, we've got the 15, it's a flatter curve, and so it's coming out there. And finally, option 3, 25% of revenue, no fixed costs here. So that's our starting point. We've got the starting point, and essentially we've now got what's our profit, if you like, $200 minus the 120 minus what's the commission, 200 at 25% of the revenue, $50. So it will be 200 minus 120 minus 50. We're getting $30 contribution for every unit we sell. So let's try and work out, for example, if we sold 40 units, what will our profit be? 40 times 30 is $1,200. So we could go up and find that point. And it looks like all the other curves cross at this point. And so what this graph is enabling us to do is to work out what the best deal is. It looks like if we were going to sell more than 40, option 1 starts to win out. If it looks like we were selling between 15 and 25, then option 2 will be the best option for us. And finally, anything less than 15, option 1 will win out. I hope I've said that the right way. Option 1, I was gone the wrong way. No, we'll think about that. We'll fix up any mistakes I might have made and confused you in class. You can probably see it where you're at. Think about it anyway. If I have made a mistake, I'll push on so I don't waste more of your time fiddling around with that one. Well, here we go. Option 1, definitely the highest risk. The higher your fixed cost, the greater your sales need to be. So I did get it the wrong way around. Higher risk, I've got to work harder to generate the profit. So anything above 40, definitely option 1 is a great option for us. Yeah, that'll do. That's good. Well, what about the sales mix? So far, we've really only just looked at one product. Well, if we have a sales mix, we'd try and weight the contribution margin based on whatever the sales mix is, quantity. So we'll be doing some questions in class that will do that. And the other thing to consider is that there may be multiple cost drivers or activities that's driving the variable cost up, not just units sold. So perhaps as the units sold increase, also the number of delivery kilometres travelled, might increase, and also the number of customer service phone calls, sales commission, and maybe penalty rates might kick in if overtime is required. So there's a range of what-if scenarios we need to consider, just not one flat variable cost. If we're in a service industry, it's just not for manufacturing organisations and retail companies. Definitely, we were talking about earlier the whale watching boat. If you're putting on a concert for 500,000 people or something, you would also do some cost volume profit analysis. Patient days, PhD completions, so service centres could work out what their break-even point is and what a range of different scenarios and income levels might be. So let's have a look at a couple of live demos. We've probably got about 10 minutes, I hope, left to finish off. And if you wanted to pause, that's a great opportunity for you to do that, but come back and we'll have a look at a few really helpful examples. So let's do these. The first one is looking, I'll just see, hopefully I can find it. Here it is. A very, very simple goal seek analysis. So we've got our variables, we've got our selling price here, variable cost $10, fixed cost of 20,000. Let's imagine we thought at those levels that we could sell 5,000 units. So we'll just do a very simple revenue statement, if you like. We'll say let this cell here equal the quantity times selling price. Enter. Let variable costs equal the variable costs times the number of units. And this should be the contribution margin. So let's get our sales minus variable costs. And finally, our fixed costs, let this equal whatever the person keys in up in our unit entry area, data entry area. Finally, our profit. I should probably just adjust that to make it look nice and neat. Give it some decimal places. Okay, and finally, our profit equals the contribution margin minus my fixed costs. Enter. So we point and shoot writing formulas. Hopefully by now you're comfortable. Just click on the cell, do the operation and click on the next cell and hit enter, and you've got your formulas written. So I've made a profit. If I knew I could sell 5,000, what we can do is a whole range of what-if analysis using the goal seek function, which is just a trial and error type function. It puts it in a loop, just goes around and around and around, keeps crunching the numbers till it finds a solution. So all this data here is linked to what's going on down here, and every cell links to this final profit cell here. So what if we said, well, what is the break-even point? So we would go to data. We would go to, oops, sorry, wrong option. Data here in the menu options. What if analysis, drop down arrow, goal seek. And it says, because we always click on what we'd like the answer to. So click on your profit. You're trying to set the profit. And the break-even point is where the profit equals 0. So I'll key a 0 in there. And what would we like to change? Now, what we can do here is we can hold any one of those, everything else constant, and just change one thing. If we thought, oh, well, what would the selling price be? Or what would the variable cost be? But here we're thinking they're constant. So at this point, we just want to change the quantity. So I'll key in quantity, press OK. And it went round and round and found a solution for us. 1,111 units is the break-even point. But of course, you can't sell 0.11 of a unit. So we'd have to round it up to 1,112 as our break-even point. Let's have a look at two other examples. We're going to have a look at some graphs in a moment. I just wanted to show you the financial calculator can do it as well. It's just got the formulas built in. So imagine your fixed costs were 1,000, selling price 20, variable cost 10, break-even point has to be 1,000 divided by the contribution margin of $10 per unit, selling price minus variable cost. And there it is, 100. So we know the answer is 100. Now there's a button, we'll look at this. I don't have my camera on to be able to show you. It's underneath the payment button on your calculator, pretty easy to find. And it says BREAK, short for break even, of course. Or could be short for breakfast. No, it's short for break even. And so what we do then is when you hit the break even, it comes on the screen, it comes up with fixed equals. It's asking you to enter the fixed cost. So we just enter $1,000 and press the enter button over on the right-hand side, the NT. And then we scroll down and it says, well, what's your variable cost? So we just key in the variable cost, press the enter button, scroll down, and it says, what's the selling price? We'll put in our selling price of $20, scroll down for the profit. Here we want to find the break-even point, so we'll enter the profit as 0, press enter, and scroll down to the last option, quantity, press compute, and it will solve it for you. An extension of that might be, well, what if you wanted to earn a $200 profit? If all the data was in, all you would need to do is scroll back up to where the profit figure is, enter $200, then scroll down to quantity and hit compute, and you'll find that point. So if you decide you're doing a brand new question, second function alpha 00 clears everything out and you're ready to re-enter data again. So quite a handy little feature on the calculator. Two more quick graphs to look at. The first one is, this is produced by Jack's Works. Fairly simple, very, very easy to graph. They've set up a table of units and they've put their variables up here, the fixed cost. People can change the variable cost here and the number of units and then the price, selling price. And it will then come up with a very simple formula saying, give me the number of units times wherever the selling price is. For the fixed cost, it's fixed. Whatever the person enters in here, we drag that down. Fixed cost will stay fixed, which will enable me to graph it there. And the variable cost, same sort of thing. Give me the variable cost per unit times variable cost per unit times the number of units over here. And because we've locked the dollar signs in to always pick up the variable cost there, locked it in at F7. But B13 with no dollar signs there because we want to be able to drag that down. So as we go to grab that cell and drag it down, it will go B14, B15, B16, etc. We keep doing that. Total cost is clearly just those two costs added together. This cell plus this cell, that's ready to drag down. And the profit, simply the revenue minus the cost, and we've got the profit. There you go. It's okay, the graph's all right, but and right now it just so happens to be crossing the break-even point right in the middle. Scale's not too bad. None of the graphs are labeled, so that's a bit of a, well, they're labeled if you hover above it, but it would be good if it had a legend there for us. It's just because we're clever that we know that's the fixed cost and that's the total cost and that's the revenue. But what's bad about this graph is that's fine at the moment, but what if somebody keys in, I think we can, for this level of units, I think we'll do 500. And the problem with that is the break-even point's way down here. And I always like the break-even point to be happening right in the middle of the graph. So a better version of that, I think it's quite clever, is the Harvard Business School example. And we'll have a quick look at how it works. Similar sort of page, we can key in a target profit if we wanted to, or a break-even point. So we can enter a target profit there. We can enter a range of fixed costs. It will add it up and find the total fixed cost. And we can enter a range of variable costs. It will come down and add a total variable cost. And here's my little break-even formula. It's going equals if, can't really make that, will this happen if I make that bigger? I don't think it's, no, it's not going to let me make that bigger for you. Ooh, no, it's only changing that. Okay, it's an if statement. It's looking for an error here. It's really, what it's going to do is if it can't find a solution, if somebody, for example, went here to put the target profit, and instead of putting the 0, common mistake, just underneath the keyboard, they could hit the letter O. So I might just do that just for fun, the letter O, and think I've put a 0 in. And it comes up with a break-even point of 0. Can't do it. So, you know, there's just an error. So if the if statement's saying, if there's an error, just, you know, don't do it. I'm going to put the 0 back in. And so it's saying, yeah, if there's an error, or, you know, if it, just leave it 0. But otherwise, give me my fixed cost, add my profit, and divide by my selling price minus my variable costs per unit. So the formula is built in. But that's the same as the last graph. What I wanted to show you, I thought was clever, is the chart will always break even right in the middle. And we'll show you how that happens. There's my fixed cost. There's my total cost laid on top. Got a nice little legend here so we don't have to guess, and there's my total sales curve. So the way they've done it, very similar sort of table to graph, fixed cost very similar, variable cost, but the clever part of this graph is the way they've done the number of units. What they've done is analysed how many steps there are they'd like in my table. I'd like break even to be in the middle. So just for each level of units, they're going to start at 0, but the next step up, they write a formula for the break-even analysis, which is there's the break-even formula telling me the number of units, and they say this is step 1 of the graph. So let this equal 1 divided by 10. It's 1 times the break-even point divided by 10. So 1/10 of the break-even units. This will be 2/10 of the break-even unit, 3/10 of the break-even unit, 4/10, 5/10, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the break-even point, 10 times the break-even point divided by the break-even point. So give me the break-even point. They just keep going. 11/10. Give me, this is the 12th position on the graph, make it 12/10 of the break-even point. So quite a handy, nice little feature, which means as the data changes, the graph will always be in the middle. So to prove that point, let's put a crazy, where's my selling price? I don't know. Where my selling price is there. We've got a variable cost per unit, pricing and contribution. Unit price, there it is, $15. So I'm going to put $15,000, just see what happens. We're going to test it. My break-even volume is 9. Oh, I haven't done this before. I hope the chart works. Yes, there it is. Wow, my variable cost is such because of I put this ridiculous revenue. My variable cost as a proportion of the fixed cost is so small, so that's why it's looking like that. But the break-even point's right in the middle. I'll just go and change one more figure just for fun. So that was a bit crazy. Maybe I'll make it not quite as big, maybe $55. And again, my chart, break-even point right in the middle. There's my total cost on top. So look, that will do us for today. We'll do some really smashing examples when we get together in class. So look forward to catching up with you.